Howdy, it's Bonnie. I have a quick ad for you. I've started podcast recording about 4 years ago. Always been on the hunt for a good platform to invite my guests and conduct the interviews. One that would allow me to have control over the audio quality and one that would assist me once issues arise. It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using a browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with a few guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality even if the connection is unstable. Go now to zencaster.com/pricing and use my code BonniesLegends, that's BONNIESLEGENDS, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experience I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Howdy everyone and welcome to another episode of Bonnie's Legends. My name is Bonnie Orbison and today's legend is Colin Blunstone. So if you're listening to the Zombies or, Time of the Season or She's Not There, you're very familiar with Colin's music because Colin Blunstone started out with the Zombies in the 60s. And in this lovely conversation we had last week, we shared zombie stories, but we mostly talked about his upcoming tour for Germany and the Netherlands, as well as his recent solo albums he's recorded and put out. And yeah, we talked all about aspects of live music and performing, as well as his general songwriting process, which was very interesting to listen to. I hope you enjoy listening to it as well. My name is Bonnie Orbison. This is Bonnie's Legends, and have fun listening to my interview with Colin Blunstone. Well, everyone listening, I have Colin Blunstone as my legend today. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I mean, it's an absolute honor having you on my podcast because obviously it's called Bonnie's Legends. And then, I have, for example, interviewed Chappell Roan, who won now a Grammy and whatnot. But obviously you're like someone that when we say legend, we also think of.
It's very difficult to think of yourself as a legend. I think of myself as a jobbing musician, and I've just tried to keep busy, writing, recording, and performing over the years. It's a fight that every musician has to get involved with. Well, most musicians, every day wake up and okay, what are we going to do today? You have to be energized and positive and go for it, even though you know that you're going to be knocked about a bit during the day. You have to keep that energy going. So I just see myself as a jobbing musician, but you can call me if you like.
I call you a legend today. Who would you consider a legend?
Well, I think back to the people that drew me to contemporary music when I was young. It would be rock and roll and the greats of rock and roll. Early Elvis Presley, A Heartbreak Hotel and Hound Dog, I remember, which led me to Little Richard and Chuck Berry. And they were they were the people that got me interested in rock and roll. Later on, there was a kind of a second wave of American musicians, which would be like Buddy Holly and Ricky Nelson. I was also very keen on. They're five of the people that I remember. And then, of course, with the Beatles in 1963, I think everything changed. Well, we were already, the Zombies were already a band then. We actually formed in 1961, and we were influenced by the rock and roll greats, as I've just said. But in the band, it was quite interesting because there was a very wide spectrum of influences from modern jazz, classical music, the blues, rhythm and blues, rock and roll. And I think that's why sometimes it was hard for people to categorize what kind of music we played, because our influence came from such a wide spectrum. And that, I think, gave us a unique sound. It may not have been everyone's cup of tea, but it gave us a unique sound. But it made it difficult for people to slot us, and that can be a disadvantage in the music industry. They like you to be
in a box.
Yes, in a box. And I think it was very difficult to do that with the Zombies. And the reason being these wide influences that all the guys brought to the rehearsal room in 1961 when we first rehearsed. I can remember it quite vividly. I was the rhythm guitarist, and Argent was going to be the lead singer. I never had the slightest intention of ever being the singer. I've always been quite shy, and my view of this was I would stand at the back of the stage playing chords and looking at my shoes. And in the space of one rehearsal, suddenly I'm up the front of the stage in the middle singing. When we were packing up the gear after the first rehearsal, I just started playing a Ricky Nelson song to myself. I had a guitar because I was the rhythm guitarist, and I was just playing to myself. And Rod heard me, Rod Argent, and he said, "If you'll be the lead singer in the band, I'll play keyboards." Because in a break in that first rehearsal, he was the lead singer. We were doing an instrumental, so he didn't really do anything. But in a break, he went over to a broken down old piano, and he played Nut Rocker by the Bee Bumble and the Stingers, and it's a rock and roll take on an old classical piece. And it's far in excess of what we were capable of. He just completely blew me away. We were playing sort of 2 or 3 chords. And I said to him, "Why don't you play keyboards in the band?" And he said, "No, it's got to be a rock and roll band. We don't want keyboards. It's got to be guitars." But then at the end of the first rehearsal, he heard me sing and he said, "Okay, if you'll be the lead singer, I'll play keyboards." And essentially that was the Zombies.
That was it.
There on in.
Yeah. That's right. Rock and roll is more guitar driven. But when you mentioned like modern jazz, because I wrote my thesis on jazz, there's a lot of keys in there. Like jazz is very like.
Of course. And Rod is, incredibly interested in jazz. He can play very well in a jazz idiom. And his all-time hero is Miles Davis. And if you do an interview with him, there'll be lots to talk about Miles Davis, I expect.
He would probably say that's his legend.
Yes, he may well. I think he would say Elvis. Yeah. And then a little bit later, Miles Davis. Yeah.
Elvis is great too. I love Elvis.
Oh yeah, me too. Nothing after he left the army, or once he went into the army. I think nothing there. It's the early stuff that's really magical. He always had a great voice. Yeah, it was his choice of material that was a little strange, I thought. Yeah. But early Elvis, wow, no one had ever seen anything like that. And in the same way with the Beatles, no one had ever seen anything like that. It was just incredible. I didn't see Elvis play, but I did see the Beatles play. And it was very, very exciting. But the screaming and the noise was so loud. I didn't really hear too much. What I heard sounded good, but I'm a huge Beatles fan as well. I mean, I just think they're phenomenal.
I got to ask you, who's your favorite Beatle?
Well, I'm not sure I'm more interested in their music than them as individuals. But, I think McCartney is a very interesting character because he's kept going, he's got so much energy. He's always got something on the go. I mean, he is a phenomenon. Yeah. But in their own way, I liked all of them. I thought Ringo was a very underrated drummer. Yeah. I mean, what he put on those tracks was, I presume most of it came from him, but it's so original and it fits the track so well. I like George Harrison's writing, and of course, Lennon and McCartney, they're legends. It's just what we've been talking about, particularly as writers. Yeah. Yes.
You already talked about like the beginning of everything. And the question I like to ask is, do you remember like a specific moment you were like, oh, this is it. This is great. Let's do this. Like a moment that you felt you made it in a way.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't think I've ever, in those specific words, I've never really felt I've made it, because, you know, so much depends on the future in the music business.
Yeah.
You know, the minute you start to think, like, you know, I just had a hit record, or I just played to this big festival, it's gone. You know, you've got to be thinking about what's next all the time. It really keeps you on your toes. But I do remember an instance. We, as you know, young teenagers, amateur musicians, we won a big rock competition. And it was held locally, but bands came from all over the country. It was for, I remember specifically, it was for 10 weeks, and there were 10 bands a week. So there were 100 bands. And we won. We were so surprised that we weren't at all expecting to win it. But when we won it, it was in quite a big place. It was in a town hall that held 2,000 people, and all the bands had their supporters. So it was very noisy. It was a bit like a football match with lots of shouting and what I call noisemakers. People go to football and they have these things,
yes,
and scarves and things. It was like a football match, and we won. And then I thought, I didn't say anything. I always thought the zombies never talk much about things. We talk about it's a nice day, but not important things like this. And I thought, you know, maybe there's a chance for us to become a professional band and just possibly do something. But I didn't dare say anything. But I thought it then. Yeah. And as a result of that competition and other things that were going on, we actually did sign a contract with Decca Records, and we recorded She's Not There, and it was #1 all around the world.
Yeah.
And that happened over a period of about 3 or 4 months, or 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, that's wild.
You know, when you're in your teens, I think when we recorded She's Not There, I was 18. When it came out, I think I was more 19. But when you're in your teens, you kind of accept all these things. It just happened. This is how it's going to be. When I look back now, it seems extraordinary, because within a few months, we were top of the charts in America.
Yeah.
And I never dreamed of going to America, the home of jazz, rock and roll, and all just rhythm and blues, the blues, and playing to Americans. And it was extraordinary. It was a little bit nerve-wracking, but it was fine. You know, they accepted us. We didn't know what was going to happen. So it all happened very quickly. But I remember winning that competition and thinking, possibly there's a way ahead for us as a professional band. That was probably the big moment for me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I mean, as you said, you know, those moments you probably, as you said, just think that you don't really dare to speak it out loud. I don't know, like to jinx it or to disappoint yourself and the others. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It is strange, but that is true, I think. And it's particularly true in the Zombies. We, you know, things would just happen. No one talked about it. They just, I can remember our original bass player. I joined the band because I went to quite a strict school, and we were sat in alphabetical order by surname. No one ever called you by your Christian name. Your friends might, but not the teachers. So I was Blunstone, and the guy in front of me was Arnold. And he had a friend who lived in a couple of streets over who was called Rod Argent, who wanted to form a band. There's no way I could have known this guy, Rod Argent. Didn't come to my school. But he was a neighbor of Paul Arnold, who sat in front of me because we sat in alphabetical order.
Wow.
And this is how Paul Arnold turned around to me and he said, "You've got a guitar, haven't you?" And I said, "I have actually, yeah." And he said, "Well, do you want to be in a band?" And that was my audition for the Zombies. I said, okay. And that was it. But anyway, Paul, who sat in front of me at school, he wanted to be a doctor and he needed to study, and he became a doctor, but he needed to study. And so he couldn't really do all the rehearsals. So he left and another guy joined. I've never understood who auditioned him or where he came from. I knew him vaguely because he went to my school, but he was a couple of years older than me. So I had never spoken to him. Yeah. And he turned up to play bass. His name was Chris White, and he became one of the principal songwriters in the band. after about 6 weeks of rehearsals, our drummer, Hugh Grundy, you normally think of the drummer and the bass player as being very tight.
Yeah.
And they hang out together, and there are
bass section. Yes.
Yeah. Our drummer came up and whispered in my ear and said, "Who's this bloke who keeps coming in and playing bass?" He'd never spoken to him. And Chris White had been coming in for about 6 weeks doing rehearsals. And he'd never spoken to him. He didn't know his name, and he didn't know who he was.
Wow.
So I had to kind of introduce him. But he'd been in the band for about 6 or 7 weeks at that point. Wow. So the Zombies
did not talk to each other, really.
Well, we did, but not about I mean, this is only me saying this.
Yeah.
The others probably wouldn't agree. But I think sometimes we didn't talk to one another about the important things.
Yeah.
Like, who is that bloke playing the bass standing in front of me? You would think they would have a conversation, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Always here for a zombie story. Yeah, you're going on tour. Very excited for Germany and the Netherlands.
Absolutely. I've always kept a solo band going because I had a solo band before the Zombies sort of regrouped and started playing again. I think it was in 1999 we started playing again together. But I'd been playing for a couple of years before that as a solo band, and I've always kept it going.
Nice.
But the Zombies have been so busy until recently. I think you probably know that Rod Argent's been quite ill, and he's decided not to tour anymore. He's getting better all the time. He's fine.
That's good.
But he just doesn't want to tour anymore.
Yeah.
And so I've sort of reactivated the solo band, and there's been a change of personnel over the years, but it's a really good lineup at the moment. And I think in about 10 days we're coming to Germany, to Berlin.
Yeah. I'm coming. I'll be there. I'm there.
Oh, you're going to be there? Okay. Yeah. But do come and say hello, won't you?
I will.
And then we're going to play some dates in Holland. So I'm really looking forward to it. It should really be fun.
Yeah. I saw the video. I mean, I don't know if you know what is posted on social media, but I saw a video where the band is introduced at a rehearsal. That was quite fun.
Oh, really? No, I haven't. No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. Everyone introduces each other and sort of throws jokes around. It's quite funny. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. I'm not terribly up on social media, but they're really good players and they're lovely blokes to travel with as well. It's so important, when you're sitting for hours either in a plane or in a truck. It's so important that everyone gets on, and they're lovely people.
That's what you say in the video.
Did I say that?
Yes.
Okay.
Nice. Do you have a favorite track when you play live? Like a song that you really enjoy playing live?
Well, I think there's quite a few, really. I'm just thinking about, She's Not There will always be a favorite because it was the first record we recorded and it changed our lives. So, and it still sounds fresh and relevant today. I think it's just a really, really good song. I love the song from the Alan Parsons Project that I sang for Alan, Old and Wise. It's a very sad song from the album Eye in the Sky. So we'll play both of those. And, I like some of the rock and roll tunes. We've been opening on a Rod Argent song called Time to Move, but I think we might change things up a bit on this tour. So it's probably going to come about fifth or sixth, but it's a really good little rock and roll tune. Yeah. Unless we revert to what we were, I don't know, we haven't started rehearsals yet. We've been opening on that Time to Move. I really like it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I thought it was time for a change, but I can't come up with anything quite as good as an opener. So I'm not sure what we're going to open on. But Time to Move, Old and Wise, and She's Not There.
Nice.
3 really good songs.
Nice. That's lovely. I discovered only recently, your EP, Less is More, which are stripped down versions of solo songs, but also zombie tracks, right? And I feel like The Sun Will Rise Again that's a zombie track, right?
The Zombies did record it, but I wrote it. Yeah.
Right. Yes. So I'm just curious. I mean, the EP is called Less is More, right? But I'm curious if that was also the intention of re-recording these tracks and stripping them down a bit and playing them acoustic, or if it just happened naturally. Yeah.
No, it happened naturally. These acoustic tracks were recorded first.
Oh,
and I just recorded them like in an afternoon. They were songs I was working on. I recorded them in an afternoon, and then I played. I think the Zombies have actually recorded 3 of them, but the Sun Will Rise Again, definitely they have recorded. I've also recorded it with a string quartet as well.
Yeah.
But I haven't recorded it in a band setting. I don't know whether I would dare record. I'd like to, but people will get a bit upset if you keep re-recording songs. And they think that you're trying to, be a cheapskate. But it's not like that. You want the best for the song. You feel you can get more out of a song. But I'm not sure if I dare record it a third time. But no, anyway, I recorded them first. And I was sitting in this room with one of my 2 managers. I'm managed by a company in New York, which is owned by 2 people, Cindy D'Souza and Chris Tuttle. And Cindy was here, and I wanted to talk to her about a song. And I said, well, look, I've got a demo of this song. I just put it on. And she said, oh, I really like that. I like it stripped back like that. Yeah. And even then, it probably took a year or 2 before she said, I think we should let people hear these just out of interest. I think people would like to hear this. And I mean, it doesn't, I don't know that it leads anywhere. It's just an insight into a song's progression. I write a song, I would probably demo it like that. And then perhaps the Zombies or myself will take it on from there.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And I think we've had, it is on all the streaming platforms. And I think it's getting on towards 100,000 streams. So I think it's fantastic for something that was never intended for anyone else to hear.
Yeah.
But that was good. The Sun Will Shine Again is probably my favorite of those songs. I think all the songs, nearly all the songs I write, have got a trigger. They're not necessarily written line for line about something. Some of them are. And it can get, sometimes it can get a little bit difficult because it's literal.
Yeah.
You have to try and disguise it a bit because you might be giving away too much of your life or too much of someone else's life. But The Sun Will Rise Again, it was definitely triggered by a difficult patch that my daughter was going through. And so it's very much a song of a parent talking to a child.
Yeah.
And just saying, the sun will rise again, and all the other things, wishing I could have said more to warn you about things like this, and just be strong and you'll get through it. That's the kind of thing about it. But so that's probably my favorite song of those 5 tunes.
I like that. Yeah, that's the first song I listened to, and then I discovered the EP, and I was like, oh.
Right.
It definitely felt. I played the song my mom, and she just recently learned English because I'm dating English people. I'm bringing back English friends, so she kind of has to talk English. And so I played her the song, and she understood the lyrics, and she was like, "Oh, that's very sweet. That's like a song I would send you." When you're like on a
You hit the nail on the head. Yeah,
yes, because it's true. The sun will rise again, and so it's a nice metaphor.
It's funny. I got that line from a famous American athlete, and I can't remember his name, but he was a 400 meters hurdles champion, and he went some incredible amount of races without being beaten. Yeah. And the interviewer was saying to him, what happens if you're beaten? This is going to be terrible. And he's just said, the sun will rise again. It's not a big problem. If I get beaten, I get beaten. And I always remembered that phrase that he used,
Wow. I did not see that coming from there. That's good.
It's the thing with songs. When people say, how do you write songs? You just have to grab hold of anything you can.
Yeah.
At the starting point. It could be a chord change. It could be a little bit of melody that comes to you, a title, a storyline, anything. And then you just try to build. This is how I do it anyway. And you try to build on that. And I sometimes think it's a little bit like a crossword. you need to get that bit before you can get the next bit, and then you can build another bit on it. So it's like a crossword with soul. I think that's what it is, really, because usually I like to write from inside rather than write about trivial things, or just write songs for the sake of it. Or this could be a hit. We got to the chorus within 28 seconds. This could be a hit. I'm not really interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That was also one of my questions that I had, was like, how do you write songs? Do you like wake up and you're like, okay, let's write a song? Or do you, I can hear it happens naturally. Like you just collect.
Yes, I might write up and say, okay, I'm going to write a song, but that doesn't necessarily mean I will.
Yeah.
I'll come down into this room and play, and I'm really stuck. I've got one song finished and two songs half finished.
Yeah.
And then some ideas, and I'm just trying to get to the next stage.
Yeah.
So hopefully it'll happen. I don't know where songs come from. It's not a matter of it's not a matter of working harder. You have to keep working, and then something happens.
Yeah.
And it comes.
Yeah. I'm a poet. Like I write novels and poetry.
Oh,
and so
really?
yeah, so I know the feeling of, like the talk is about, do you have a writing routine? And it's like, no, not really. I just hope something will flow out of my page. And if it doesn't, I leave again and just go outside and have a walk or something. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's very similar to writing a song.
Yeah, definitely. Especially like mostly the lyrics, probably not the music. I feel like we don't have music in writing.
No. Well, sometimes with the music too, you don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing the way it works. But I don't write a lot of songs. I'm a singer who writes a bit. Not like some people, they do write the song a day on practically.
Yeah.
I don't do that. 2 or 3 songs a year, probably.
Yeah.
And if I'm lucky, I love to write songs, record them, and then perform them. I think if you can do that's the secret. I've never been a prolific enough writer, really, to just perform my songs, but it's great to remember the spark of an idea that led to writing a song, and then you see it develop in the studio, and then you get out and play it in front of an audience. Yeah. That's a wonderful experience. Really, really good.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I've watched a couple of live performance videos as well, and I'm so excited to also like catch you live in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks already. Yeah.
And we've just filmed. We did one of the last concerts we did. We were at a place called the Union Chapel in London. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful place, and it was sold out. And we played the first half of just songs that have in my repertoire, I suppose you call it. And then in the second half, we played my first solo album, which is called 1 Year. And there's a track on there that was a big hit in the UK. I don't think it was a hit anywhere else, but it was a big hit here. And it features strings, Yes. And so we had a string quartet, although on the record it was a string orchestra. But it still works as a quartet. Yeah. And so we've just filmed that. I don't know when it's going to be available.
Your manager told something that it is coming soon. Like the DVD is coming soon, so it will be soon.
I think it will be soon, and they're going to do. The company that do it came to see me at the Union Chapel, and the head guy showed me this really nice sort of presentation box. It was very professionally done. It was funny because they only suggested doing it about the day before or 2 days before, so we were sort of swept up in the excitement of doing this. They arrived with 7 cameras, and we weren't expecting any of that.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking for. I haven't seen any of the visuals, but I've heard the audio, and it sounds pretty good.
That's good. Yeah, I feel like the audio is a lot more trickier to edit and get it down to a live performance than the video, I would think. Because you need to.
It is tricky because people really expect record quality from a live performance, and you hope that you hope it's okay, because I mean, everyone has good nights and lots of good nights, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it sounds pretty good.
Nice.
Maybe I'm not the best one to judge, but I think it sounds fairly good.
Yeah. I'm an avid live music goer. Like, I love to go to live concerts and, you know, sometimes takes photos like I will do in Berlin. And so most people come and they do want to hear studio quality. They do want to hear the song like it was in the album. But I feel like for me, the most magic in live music is when, you know, something isn't going as it was on the record, like, because like the band improvises something, or, you know, the bridge is going longer just because it's a good energy. Like that's what I like to catch in live music. I like to catch these moments where the musicians just kind of go off rails and just want to play music and jam around. Yeah.
Sure. No, I know exactly what you mean. Well, I mean, we don't stretch out the songs too much with the solo band. With the Zombies, we did. We would just improvise all over the place, and then come back to the actual song. But we keep mostly to the songs. So some of the solos are a bit longer, you know, and they're really good players in the band. So I hope you'll like it.
Yeah, I will still like it. And maybe I will catch like a little bit of like, oh, this sounds different, like in the record, probably.
Oh yeah, there will be some bit.
Yeah.
Also, I tell you what I quite like. I like it when things go wrong. If I'm in the audience and also if I'm in the band, I like it when things go wrong, and then you see how people handle it. And the really important thing is to not panic. It's not that important. Everybody, and in the audience, they're all on your side. You know, they want you to get out of it somehow. And so you just have to hang on and keep a smile on your face.
Yeah.
And it's all fine, because, you know, every now and again you're going to have some kind of hiccup. I think it's funny.
Yeah.
It happens.
Well, then that was ironic that we had a hiccup before we started recording.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, that's it. You know, we always say in this country, don't panic, you know, just keep going. The sun will rise again.
Exactly. Perfect full circle to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, you know, your manager that I emailed with, Kyla. Is that how you pronounce it? Kyla?
Oh, no, sorry, that was Kayla.
Kayla. That's okay. Yeah. That's why I wondered how it was pronounced. She told me you're working on a new album and I can ask you about it. So here I am.
Well, we're just beginning to put some tracks together, and it's come about in a very interesting way, possibly because of the band's running club. I've decided, because I'm afraid I'm not a member of I've run all my life, but I've got a bad knee. I can't run now. But our sound guy and our bass player in the solo band, he's our guitarist, and the Zombies is a bass player, and our percussionist, they all go running. And they've talked about these demos that I've done, the 5 we've talked about, but some other ones as well. And they thought, you know, they just thought they could maybe take these demos on and see if they could become anything like masters. We might have to start from the beginning again, but just to see if they would work. And they started doing this without really talking to me that much about it, but they've sent me some ideas, and they sound really good. And some of these songs are quite old. And I like that, because they weren't doing anything. You know, they were done and they weren't being used. And they've given them a real freshness, and you can see that they've got potential. And so that's where we're up to at the moment. Nice. Trying to see whether we can make these demos, by their wonderful inventiveness and their playing, whether we can make them into masters. This could actually be the track. Or whether we can see from what they're doing, this is a really good idea. But from a recording perspective, we need to go back to the beginning and start recording. Same song, same arrangement, but we have to start from the beginning. So that's where we're up at the moment, with a tight group in the solo band taking an interest in some old demos of mine. And I'm really impressed with what they've done. I think it's really exciting. And
that sounds exciting.
And I hope that we can finish an album, you know, over the summer into the autumn, so that we've got it mastered, artwork, everything by Christmas. And then we'll be ready to go next year with a new album.
Nice.
So, I didn't see this coming because I thought these songs were long forgotten. But they're quite good songs. And when you get young, accomplished musicians contributing arrangements to these tracks, they really start to come alive.
That's good. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really. I wasn't expecting it, you know. That's always the best kind of surprise, you know, when you're not expecting it.
Yeah. I feel like you're, based on the conversation we had these past 45 minutes, I feel like you're sort of let's go with the flow kind of guy.
Well, yes, I will throw ideas out there and see if anybody's interested. But sometimes what I found this when I was a lot younger, that the things that I put my energy into, sometimes nothing happens. And the thing that I wasn't thinking about at all, it creeps up behind you and takes you by surprise. You know, with the Zombies, Time of the Season, it wasn't a particularly favorite track of mine. And it was the third or fourth single that was released. And it was the Zombies' biggest single ever. I had no idea that could ever be a hit single. It sold about 2 million copies. And there have been songs of mine. I mentioned Say You Don't Mind. It's a Denny Lane song, which was recorded with a 21-piece string orchestra. Who would see that as a single? And it was a big hit in the UK. And that's happened quite a lot. And this, in a way, surprised me as well. I didn't see this happening. But I think the important thing is that when an opportunity comes along like this, you have to recognize it and really get involved and put 100% into it. And that I do that. But I don't always start the movement, you know, but when I recognize it, I get involved and I stick with it. Stamina. You need stamina in the music business. Because there are lots of wonderful musicians and probably partly because they are wonderful musicians, they don't have the tenacity to stick to things. They want to get on to the next thing and then the next thing. But you have to see things through.
Yeah. That's very inspirational.
Well, I don't know. It's just my experience in life, you know. Even when you think that a project is dead in the water, you still have to support it. And sometimes it can really surprise you.
Yeah. Still keep like sometimes it's when you feel like a plant is already dead in a way because you forgot to water it or something. Sometimes still trying it and watering it might bring it back. You never know.
Yeah.
Or like the next spring it might still come around. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No. I mostly interview like independent or like upcoming artists, right? And so they always I feel like they're gonna listen to them and be like, okay, just gotta keep going.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, go on.
No, go on. You can go on.
I was going to say, when you talk about upcoming musicians, we used to joke in the Zombies that we were an emerging rock band. It just taken us a long time to emerge. But we always felt like that, you know, we were always trying something new. And I, in a way, I feel like that as a solo artist as well. I know I've been doing this for years and years, but I haven't been doing the same thing for years and years.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to do different things.
You can hear that in your by discography.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Good.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think there are some stronger albums and not so strong albums. You know, when you're recording an album, you get involved in so much politics and everything. Some I look back on fondly, and some I look back on and just question why did I do this? But yeah,
my favorite was The Ghost of You and Me. I really like the strings and
yeah, I think it's a really, really good song. And the more modern albums that I've done, I like all of them. Some are stronger than others. I was thinking more when I was saying there were some albums that weren't so good. It was when I was younger. there were some really good ones and some not so good ones. But the ones I've done more recently, I like all of them. And there's a guy called John Sweet who's produced all of those albums. And the first one came out in 1995, and then he produced The Ghost of You and Me as well. It's such a good song, that. It did actually, it got really good airplay in the UK, that track. It's difficult if you're not on a major label.
Yeah.
Airplay, let alone get into the charts. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
But that did get airplay because it's such a good song.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, airplay is, it's sort of like, as an independent writer, getting your book into bookstores is quite difficult. Like, you need people to go into the bookstore and request your book. Yeah. And sometimes I do that. I do that undercover, go into a bookstore and just order my own book. And then I never pick it up, but then they have to sell it, so then someone else picks it up on the shelf and it's like, oh, let me read this. So yeah.
That's a really good idea. I think there was a lot of that in the old days in the music industry. They would employ a team of people to drive around the country, and they knew what the chart shops were. There were specific shops that reported to the charts how many they'd sold. And these guys just used to drive around and fill their car up with records.
Yeah.
I've never actually done it myself, done that.
That's good. And I didn't know that about. Yeah.
I mean, how the charts are made up now, I don't know, because the last Zombies album actually got into the charts in the UK and in America, but it was in the charts as far as sales were concerned. But as soon as streaming was introduced, at some point they add that in the week. That's a young person's thing, streaming, and so it made us drop right down. But on sales, we were certainly inside the top 20 in the UK and the US, which really surprised me. But we were with the last album.
People went and bought the CD and bought the vinyl, and I love getting the vinyl. I love getting the vinyl off an album. So I
know. I like vinyls too.
And I see vinyls in the back there.
Yes, yeah. I'm always conscious that people can see what's behind you.
I can read the books, some of them, but I cannot read the vinyls.
No. Nothing's in order behind me. I've no idea. I think the top row is a lot of zombie and mostly zombie stuff, I think, because I've got vinyl all over the house. This is just to be in this room here. Nice. But I like vinyl. But I probably don't listen to as much music as I should. I'm sitting here. I've got 3 guitars, and I sit in this room trying to get ideas for songs all the time.
Yeah.
And I probably should listen to other people more than I do.
Well, sometimes there are specific times for it, like the advice I usually get is read other people's books and then you feel inspired. And that's sometimes true, but then sometimes I get so absorbed in the book that I don't really want to write my own.
Yes.
So then I stop reading for a while and write again a bit. And then when I don't feel like writing, I mostly read. Yeah. So I can relate to that.
People say to me, possibly you should watch other artists on the bill when we're playing live. But if they're really good, I find it intimidating. And if they're really bad, then I find it depressing. So I don't watch other artists that much. I tend to hide in my dressing room and get ready in as much peace and quiet as I can find backstage, which isn't always possible. But
that's true.
It's sort of a similar thing to what you were talking about with the books.
Yeah.
But with live, I don't watch lots of. Certainly not when we're playing,
Yeah.
I try and make myself, but it's not always that easy.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's wrap it up. I'm curious. What's your favorite Elvis song?
Oh, I do like Heartbreak Hotel because that was the first one I heard. I think it really is a special song, but I love all those early Elvis songs.
Yeah.
I love all the early Chuck Berry and Little Richard as well. It was just another world when you saw those things. Just incredible.
Yeah.
They were brilliant. Nowadays, I'm more of a Joni Mitchell person, really, I think. I listen to her albums all the time.
Yeah. She's
There's a
great.
singer-songwriter. I actually knew him. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, called Duncan Brown, who I listen to a lot as well. Do check him out.
Okay.
He certainly had a big hit in Holland, but I don't know if he ever really had a hit in the UK. Or he did. He had one hit in the UK, but I don't know whether he had a hit in Germany. But, I knew him well, and he's a wonderful guitarist and wrote great songs, Duncan Brown. When I listen to music when I'm on tour, but I tend to listen to the same things over and over. So it'd be Joni Mitchell, Duncan Brown, and then some other singer-songwriters that I really like.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. That was a good last question.
Good.
Yeah.
I hope I rambled on too much.
No, I mean, this is a podcast, and, people mostly come to listen to you talk and not me. So some people now have established that they listen to the podcast because to discover new music or, to listen to people's creative process. But most of the time, people that are tuning in for the guests that I have on. So
good. But it's funny because people have different ways of doing interviews. I mean, I know some people, they have all sorts of trigger points that they want to talk about when they do an interview. But I just like to have a conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And that's
perfect match. Perfect match for this afternoon.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Okey-doke.
Howdy. Enjoyed listening to this episode. You know the gist. You know what to do. Make sure to subscribe and share this episode with all of your friends and leave a review so more people can tune in to my conversations with my legends. This podcast episode is hosted, edited, and produced by Bonnie Orbison. Support her continuous work on her paid Substack, which is like an online diary. And she shares her poetry and lyrical essays on there, or get one of her books. Right now she has 2 fictional novels in German and English out, and now, as well, a poetry collection called Pretty Tennessee. This podcast is managed by the Queer Lounge, and the theme song is by Evie Solis. Video clips of this episode and anthems of the day on our Instagram at Bonnie's Legends, and we're also sharing from Monday to Friday daily the new music releases, so make sure to check that out. This episode is sponsored by Zencaster. Use my special link in the show notes to save 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. See you next time.